built on relationships, focused on people, and rooted in the community. Welcome to the Build Blue podcast. Tune in for weekly episodes featuring guests who are building a better tomorrow. You'll hear inspiring stories from industry leaders, business owners, community partners, and our team members. The Build Blue podcast, where construction comes to life. An Apex Construction Group production. It's Jess Blaze from Apex Construction. I'm the Business and Community Relations Manager and host of the Build Blue podcast, and I am joined today by Jessica Beyer and Andy Wilke from Greater Mankato Growth. How are you guys?
We are great.
Thank you for being our first official guests on the Build Blue podcast, our brand new podcast here at Apex.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
It's an honor.
So I'll let you guys start by telling me your names and titles, a little brief back.
Sure. So Jessica Beyer, President and CEO with Greater Mankato Growth, Inc. Really, I've been with the organization just over 2 years, and my responsibilities really are working with all 4 of our business units. So that includes Greater Mankato Growth, which is the regional chamber of commerce and economic development organization serving our area. Also encompasses Visit Mankato, focused on really that tourism, destination development work as part of the economic development strategy. And then we have City Center Partnership, focused on downtown development of the core city center for our regional hub, which is North Mankato and Mankato. And then Green Seam, really focused on the ag epicenter of southern Minnesota.
You guys have a lot going on.
Yeah, so it's a great organization. We have a wonderful team, and just so pleased to be here with you today.
Well, thank you. And Andy?
Yeah, so Business Development and Public Affairs Director. I'm pretty new to the team, been around for just 7 months, but definitely enjoying my time. I get to focus on a couple of different things. One is, new business recruitment, retention, expansion, and then public affairs. So I get to be the voice and the advocacy voice for Mankato businesses and our members, and especially up in St. Paul this time of year during the legislative session. I get to go up and make sure to share our story with all of our legislators.
Awesome. So before we get started with the main questions, I have to ask you guys kind of a fun icebreaker question, and we're going to ask all of our guests this question. If you could open and run any business, sky's the limit, pie in the sky, what kind of business would you own?
Easy for me. It would be a pizza joint. I love that. Because I've already done it.
Really?
So my family in 2007 opened up Topper's Pizza here in Mankato.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you have already done it.
Very easy for me. So I spent my college years making pizzas.
Okay.
And it's a ton of fun, and you learn a lot about our community, making pizzas, delivering pizzas, and getting to watch that develop from ground up.
Mm-hmm.
Was really fun. And then managing the people and all the personalities and just all the dynamics. That was a lot of fun. So I would do it again too.
Oh, that's so cool. So fun fact, my parents owned a pizza place in Northeast Iowa when I was growing up. So I kind of grew up in a pizza joint.
There you go.
I can still smell the sauce and flour.
Oh yeah,
sometimes.
The flour comes home and it's all
Yes.
caked in it. And
Yep.
I used to tell people I've made 10,000 pizzas in my lifetime, and it's a lot of fun.
That's awesome. I'm glad to hear you still are a pizza lover.
Yes, of course.
That's very
And we're a
important.
pizza town.
We are.
Pizza town. Okay, Jessica, if you could open and run any business, what would it be?
Well, kind of on that theme, we must be foodies here because so back in college, I actually did a business plan. I was a business student, and so one of my plans was an Italian fast food chain franchise and looking at a business plan for that. So that kind of sparked my interest. But going on the food, I always felt like in our Greater Mankato area, now we have some options, but there was for many years some Greek restaurants.
Yes.
And I spent some time in Greece. And so I don't know, along those lines, I know the restaurant industry is, very hardworking, and it can be a tough industry,
Mm-hmm.
but very rewarding. And so kind of similar to that, gotta love food.
That's awesome. I love those answers. Thank you for having some fun with us.
Good
So
question.
let's talk about the Greater Mankato community and continue that conversation. The area is growing rapidly, and in the current market, what do you guys see from your perspective as the largest growth sectors? Where are we growing the fastest?
Well, we have a lot to share on this question. I mean, there's a lot of opportunities. And so, we kind of I look at this, there's a number of different buckets. And so really right now for kind of the growth and change and whatnot, workforce talent attraction is a number one opportunity for our region. And we can talk about livability and some of those aspects with our diverse economy and higher education. We've got a lot going for us, but there really is a need with the workforce and the talent attraction. Also, there's a lot of investment and development opportunities, both in housing and commercial.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's some corridors that are being redeveloped, such as, more specifically in the Greater Mankato region, the 169 corridor, Highway 14, that's going to be expanded to New Ulm. And so really stemming in those areas. Plus there's some, as there's development in both Mankato and North Mankato, some opportunities like 2nd Street and Riverfront Drive and things like that, more specifically to our downtown core. And then demographic shifts. I think Andy has some statistics. He's our statistic guy.
I am not the statistics guy.
But demographics are certainly changing, and there's a lot of opportunities with embracing different changes in that regard on a number of different fronts. And that also leads into, we've had a lot of leadership and generational changes. And so that all sparks, it really catalyzes into a lot of opportunities and kind of in those bucket areas.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so we're coming off the heels of the U.S. Census. And so there's, we have a lot of really great data as far as where the population centers are and where they're changing. So Minnesota as a state, we grew by 7.6% since 2010. And now we're about 5.7 million. But a part of that, there's some kind of details. The white population of Minnesota fell by 51,000 people, but the BIPOC population increased by over 450,000. And now they make up about 24% of the total population in Minnesota. In Mankato, we grew by about 7%. So we're kind of on par. But one of the things that's kind of in the details is that the metro areas grew a lot faster and the rural areas grew slower, or maybe fell in population. And so that really impacts, our community, but it also impacts, for me, and what I spend a lot of my time on is the politics of our community and our state. So rural areas and the districts get bigger more geographically, and the metro districts get more dense and smaller geographically. And that just impacts how we're represented at the state level, particularly when it comes to our legislative folks.
So will that present a new challenge for you?
I don't know about a challenge, but it just creates an interesting dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
In Minnesota, we have the metro area and we have Greater Minnesota, and there's always that conversation of how we're represented. And so I think that it creates an interesting dynamic. Minnesota almost lost a congressional seat in this last round of the census. We beat out the state of New York by 87 people.
Oh my!
There's probably more people shopping at Target right now.
Kidding.
And so had we counted 88 fewer people, we would have lost a congressional seat.
Wow.
And so that's interesting to think about those 8 seats. And we could have been down to 7. So.
Wow, I had no idea. I suppose most people didn't have any idea.
That's right.
Wow.
Well, and I think as we look at the next 5 years, there's a lot of opportunities for our region. There's certainly identified challenges, but with that, we have the core foundation with having a diverse economy. We have higher education right in our backyard with a number of institutions, including, Minnesota State University, South Central, Gustavus, name Bethany Lutheran, as well as Rasmussen. So there's a variety of options. Also with the future of K-12 and workforce development and different programs, younger and younger. So, there are challenges, but there's many opportunities for our region. And I think one of our strengths too, and as we continue to embark into the future and evolve, really is we have that strong ag economy as well. And that's really a central hub for, whether in your professional services or construction, it's serving the ag industry. And we have that strong core here and really identify with that. So, there are opportunities where we can differentiate ourselves from, maybe more urban areas, but as really a hub in Greater Minnesota. And as you can tell, there's great livability here.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's, quality of life, but recreation, culture, activities, events, sporting events, a multitude of opportunities here. And so we can just continue to capitalize on that.
And I think Mankato really showing that we can be a great host, like with Hockey Day Minnesota. That was
Absolutely
phenomenal. the state had never seen a hockey day like what the crew here locally put on.
They did a fantastic job.
Yeah, I mean, the whole city, it was just, everyone was talking about it. It was, the weather didn't cooperate and nobody cared. It was really awesome.
That's us hardy Minnesotans
Yeah.
out there. Yeah.
Well, and I think just that, Andy and I have talked about this, but just how we're capitalizing on what's unique to us and really celebrating that and embracing it. And like I said before, it differentiates us.
Yeah, absolutely. So with Mankato being this central hub in southern Minnesota and having that diverse with the ag and the shopping and the retail, how do you see that continuing to attract new businesses going forward?
I'll kind of let you take this one.
Yeah. So with this question, I always like to tell my personal story and then relate that to the community. So I'm a boomerang. So I grew up in Mankato, but then I left. I lived down in Iowa, I lived down in Georgia. And then when I had an opportunity to start a family, I came back to Mankato. There's just a different quality of life here. The way that we come together as a community, it's a great place to raise a family, the schools, the amenities. But also then I think about the business community. There's always opportunities to get involved and give back. So Hockey Day we talked about is a great example of that and how the business community came together and rallied around, a particular day, or actually it was a week. And it just really left a lot of folks in the state kind of like in awe of how well we could come together. And there's all kinds of opportunities like that within our community to be involved with boards, to give back. And a lot of the businesses just think about these opportunities to give back to their community, not just to do business and employ people, but how can they think philanthropically and give back to their community and sponsor sports teams or sponsor Hockey Day Minnesota. So that's one of the things I think that separates Mankato.
Yeah, and I have a similar story too. You use the word boomerang.
Boomerang, yeah.
I'm originally from northeastern Iowa.
Are you really?
Yes.
I did not know that.
But I did graduate from high school here.
Okay.
So I'm a bit of a local, but then proud alum of Minnesota State University Mankato. But then went away, had a career in the Twin Cities, and quite frankly traveling around the country and elsewhere, and really appreciated the quality of life, and coming back here to establish my career as well as be near family, but start a family, buy a house, have those different features, and it is a wonderful community. And I think I was fortunate, just like Andy talked about, to serve on boards and have some of those opportunities that you might not have in other places where you're kind of a needle in a haystack. And Mankato has this really great niche where we are growing and we are changing. But there's really those connections, and as a region, I think coming together and capitalizing on our strengths, that we need each other. Some of the communities that are maybe smaller in our region, but also we rely on each other, for different amenities, housing, things like that. It's just been exciting to be kind of come back and appreciate the community in a different way than when you're growing up.
That's such a cool story. I didn't realize that both of you were quote unquote in the boomerang category.
Yeah.
And I think it's cool, like how it's so encouraged even at a young age, and even for our young professionals to get involved and to represent on those committees and those boards. And I don't know that every community has that. So I think it's so neat to see the younger generation getting involved at an early age too.
Yeah. One of the things that I talk about, and I was saying, is if Mankato only knew what Mankato knows. And what that means is that there's so many opportunities out there, and everybody kind of lives in their own little bubble. So I lived in my bubble the last few years when I was at River Hills Mall, and now that I'm at Greater Mankato Growth, it just touches so many parts of our economy in different ways. I have a different perspective on the community, and it makes me appreciate the community a lot more. And it also gives us an opportunity to make sure we can be those connectors with the business community. So
you guys are doing a great job.
Thank you.
Well, it's just fun because we talk about this, and it's we get to live it every day, and we're very blessed.
As we return to normal, hopefully, new normal. I don't want to say it. People are going to shut the podcast off if I say new normal, so I can't say it.
Oh man.
No,
That's a faux pas term, new normal.
It is. So as we come out on the other side of this pandemic, hopefully, that's where we're headed. What trends are you seeing in the region, like with employment or even consumer spending, business growth, and things like that?
Oh, I think the biggest thing from an employment standpoint is flexibility. I mean, there's this whole cultural shift around working. I think employers are realizing that their employees want flexibility. I think you're going to see employers want folks to come back to the office, but employees want the flexibility of, hey, I got to stay home for this, or I got to stay home for that, and I want to, work from home. And I think there's going to be that hybrid dynamic for a while. Zoom, I think, works in a lot of settings. There's these big statewide, conversations and calls that you can be on, and it just works better than trying to get together and everybody in person. So there's a lot of that dynamic. Offices, I think, will still be relevant. I think some folks are talking about how offices may not be as relevant, but I think they will be. Consumer spending is really interesting for me too, because having spent the last few years in retail real estate, I think consumers are going to continue to shop online, but they also are going to continue to want really quality interactions with the folks that they're spending their money with. So there's a lot of businesses that are bending over backwards to provide those quality interactions. Everything from big box to small shop. Target is bending over backwards to meet customers where they are. You can do curbside, and they'll even bring you Starbucks.
Now you can get coffee delivered to your car.
How great is that? But we've found the value in the local shops on Main Street as well, and we miss that, and we kind of had this nostalgia about it as well, and I think that's going to continue.
And I think that the consumers are feeling that difference when they go into these small businesses and they have this amazing experience, and they're talking about it, and they're going back, and they're willing to spend a little bit more to get that experience, because it's just not something that you get. And they know you're clicking add to cart. Yes,
they're supporting a local business. They're supporting a local family with who has a house here and whose kids they go to school with, and then they're supporting that sports team, getting that sponsorship, and so I think that's part of the calculation for a lot of folks now.
Yeah, I think that's the key with local. And local looks different in many ways. I mean, we have small businesses. There's franchisees that are local, and so just that dynamic. But the ability to have those kind of reestablish some different connections to those that are giving back to the community, and it's not just a family, but it's also that community engagement and whatnot. And I think you hit the nail on the head with experiences, whether you're talking about the business experience, or as we look at kind of bringing in visitors and hopefully attracting people to want to not just visit here, but establish a career here or settle down roots here. It's about the experience and what kind of things that you can do that's unique. And I think an opportunity too is tying that region where we have the Moondogs. So, maybe you don't go, some people, you go to a Twins game, that's great too. It supports our, our state team. Yep. But we've got that right here in our region. And so supporting the Moondogs or winery brewery tours or some of those local kind of visitor things, that there's a lot to do close to home as well. And bringing people in that way where, I think from the tourism in that market where we thought it's still important to bring people from other places, but I think it's those connections here, within the region and surrounding regions too.
Yeah, there is a lot to do here. And sometimes like living here, you're like, oh, what are we going to do? And you go online and you look up in the Twin Cities and you're like, no, there's a lot to do right here. We don't have to go anywhere. We can have people come here and experience all the great things that we have, which is awesome.
And I think as we look, to embark on, some community planning and regional planning, I think those are all different things that we can tie into in the strengths and looking at, what does that look like moving forward with how we're positioning ourselves and capitalizing on our assets where we might have, a diverse economy with manufacturing, higher ed, retail, government, all of the different diverse economy that we're fortunate to have in this region. But how, a lot of that is tied in ag, but we're so much more than that. And then getting to show people the other layers of what our region and almost like a hidden secret.
It is. That's such a good way to describe it. Speaking of secrets. So there's new buildings, there's things happening all over, there's renovations that people are seeing, and you hear the rumors like, oh, I heard we're getting one of these, or I heard we're getting one of these. Can you give us any details on upcoming projects that are, obviously you can't really tell us secrets, but like something that you're excited about that's happening or coming to the region or growing, as far as business?
Well, in your business development role, I'll let you kind of, I don't want to take your thunder,
Sure.
but I'll chime in from here and there.
One of my favorite projects that is not a secret, obviously, is the pickle barn. And so very excited about that project. I get to drive by it every day and see the progress. And it's exciting to have a facility like that in Mankato. Another couple that are on my radar that I think are exciting is the Landmark building. It's an iconic location. And then the Burton project across the street as well is going to be really, I think, a great use of that property. Excited to see some of the residential development downtown. So we've seen a number of office spaces go up with Profinium, Ridley, Bridge Plaza, Ide Bailey, but we're really excited about the residential aspect to that and getting more bodies downtown and creating those creative placemaking opportunities. So is there ways that we can continue to promote that downtown living and increase the vitality of downtown? City Center Partnership is a part of our mission at Greater Mankato Growth, and we really focus hard on just creating that community in downtown and helping just leverage the business community down there. But I think that those residential opportunities are really going to be fun. Another one that I'm really excited about is regional recreation projects. So a few years ago, the City of Mankato voters said, hey, we want to invest in regional recreation in our community. And so we're talking about that at Caswell Park up in North Mankato, and they've got their request into the state legislature to build that facility. But then there's also a conversation about ice in Mankato and how do we expand our ice offerings. We are in Minnesota, after all. Hockey is a big deal around here.
Is it?
I know. I'm not sure if you heard about Hockey Day Minnesota that happened recently in Mankato. And so there's a really great opportunity for our community to invest in those types of community amenities. For us, it's a workforce sort of issue. Folks are craving those amenities in their community. So if they're going to make this a community to live in, they want to have all those amenities, And so another cool project that the city of North Mankato is doing is that splash pad up there by Falstein. That's cool.
Children's Museum too.
Children's Museum. My goodness. Yes.
There's the Children's Museum. So there's housing, there's commercial. With new restaurants, I think it speaks to that livability, because if we have that core strong downtown, but it really resonates to the whole community where we can all be successful really in our region. But the Children's Museum is exciting. Bethany Lutheran College has a sports complex. So I think it's really exciting because there's these opportunities to have these partnerships so that we can kind of share resources, be part of some of the strategy where we're working together on some of these solutions.
And it's when you've lived here for a long time. I moved here in 2006, and sometimes you forget what things used to look like or what used to be there. And like the downtown region, I think, is a great example. Like it has changed and grown and expanded so much. I think when I moved here, the Hilton was just opening. Does that sound right for timing? 2006? Yeah. And like Olives was just opening. And I remember thinking like, oh, it's like such a swanky restaurant. And like just how much things have grown and expanded since then. It's just crazy to think about like, where will we be in another 15 to 20 years?
The neighborhood that I live in, I don't think existed when I left Mankato. And now it's this whole thriving community that keeps neighborhood that keeps expanding.
And it's still growing.
Yeah,
and there's residential construction and like you said, the pickle barn, and that's going to, bring a whole development to that area.
Yeah. Absolutely. With the residential, but you see restaurants like MIO expanding and others. I really do think that the corridors, so we mentioned it earlier when we were talking, but the corridor of 169, that's a huge opportunity. It'll be really fun to see what does that look like with some of that gateway to Mankato and also along anywhere, Lake Crystal to St. Peter. What does that look like? And, there's a lot of great things happening up on Commerce Drive in North Mankato and that whole section along 14. And so there's just so many opportunities. And to your point, in 10 years, we've got a lot that is subject to change, and it's exciting.
It's going to be great. You guys, thank you so much for, again, being the first official guests on the Build Blue podcast. Is there anything else that you guys want to add, or anything else you want to talk about that's happening in our region?
Well, I just think there's lots of opportunities when it comes from, expansion and quality of life. And, we're excited to be here for the first one, and look forward to working with you.
Yeah, you guys as well.
Yeah, Apex, you guys are doing such great work, and we're so glad to have you as partners. And so we just love the opportunity to partner with you.
Oh,
absolutely.
You guys as well. Thank you so much. Andy Wilke, Jessica Beyer from Greater Mankato Growth. And that concludes the first episode of the Build Blue podcast. You can listen to us anywhere you get your podcasts. Make sure you leave us a review about how awesome Andy and Jessica are and how great Mankato is. And you can also find us on YouTube as well. That's a surprise for our guests. We don't tell them they're going to be on YouTube until they get here.
Thanks.
Thank you guys so much.